Good afternoon, brothers and sisters, lovers of humanity, human rights, dignity, justice, people who are against the criminal and justice system, people who are for peace and a fair economy. Again, I greet you and say good afternoon. My name is Dr. W. Randy Short, and this is a Dignity Report in conjunction with Education for Peace Productions. And today we have the pleasure of meeting an activist, a crusader against injustice and all that is wrong in our system. And I'm going to ask him on this 29th day of January 2012 to state your name for me.
My name is Dwayne Gerald Davis Sr. Everybody calls me Shorty.
And you are a resident of Baltimore, I believe.
Yes, I live in Baltimore, Maryland now.
And you're a native of
Zion, Illinois.
Which is somewhere between
Chicago and Milwaukee.
And you grew up there.
That's where I grew up at.
Now, what brings you to the city of Baltimore?
I moved to Baltimore in 1990, and it was right after I got out of jail.
Is there a reason that you are willing to state why you may have been in the criminal and justice system?
I committed crimes. I was a criminal.
But you since transformed and become a advocate for...
When I moved to Baltimore, I left my past behind me. I changed my life. If you're going to change your life, you got to change your environment. I wasn't around the same people I was committing crimes with. I was around different people. Nobody knew about my history. I got to blend in.
My understanding is you have some experience in the military.
I'm an honorably discharged veteran from the United States Navy. I was in the Navy during the Iran-Contra hearings, the 70s, late 70s, early 80s.
Where did you operate out? Where was your theater? Where were you serving?
I was stationed in Norfolk, Virginia. My ship was built in Newport News, Virginia. We did a Southern Pact, Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Gitmo, Cuba, St. Thomas, St. Croix, Jamaica.
Did your tenure in the military have anything to do with you later becoming an activist, or just wanting to do something different from perhaps what you experienced in Northern Illinois?
Military taught me how to be a criminal.
Could you share with us how?
The military taught me how to sell drugs, how to market drugs, how to transport drugs, how to loan shark, how to gamble. I joined the military when I was 17 years old. I quit high school and joined the military. When you was going to prom and having prom night, I was dealing with prostitutes in Puerto Rico.
So when people say the military is a good place to send black men to become better people, would you agree with that, or would you have perhaps a mixed opinion?
My opinion is this: every black man in America should either go to jail or go to the military, because it's going to show them some type of discipline that they lacking in their lives. That's my opinion. Now, you're going to go to jail being black in America anyway, because they just lock you up with this Jim Crow justice system. But in the military, you're going to get the same discipline. At least you get a paycheck.
When you were younger, were your activities something that were uplifting, or did you get somehow caught up in what was happening in your area?
I've been in the streets since I was 10 years old. I'm the ninth of 10 kids. I didn't have to be in the streets. I just liked the streets. I learned from people in the streets, from older people, shining shoes, running errands, running and working in grocery stores, working on the block, family members. I just like the streets.
So there's that takes that turn. Now, if we come forward to when you leave the military, you left the military with an honorable discharge about,
79.
79. And you went back to your...
I went back to Illinois. I worked for the Board of Elections. I worked for the Great Lakes Naval Fire Department. I worked for the Glenview Naval Air Station. And then I just started doing what I was doing.
Was there a lack of satisfaction in the work that you were doing, or did you miss? The reason I'm asking is, when you work in a job, if you're the only black person there, there's a sense of being alienated. When you're in the streets, you're with your friends, people that you know, there's a sense that you belong, whereas if you're the only one in the office.
Well, working in the military, when I worked at the Great Lakes Fire Department, it was just like that. We only had so many blacks, and we wouldn't get in the positions that we deserved. I had enough training from my military skills to make me an E4 when I came out of the military.
But your rank was?
E1.
And what's the difference in pay between a 4 and
like $6,000.
$6,000. And in addition to that, was the treatment?
Treatment was the same. You got all the shit jobs. Mm-hmm. It was no different. You just changed the same way they treated you in the military. They treated you in the civilian life.
And so you didn't really experience the benefit of a veteran's preference when you left the armed
Didn't even
services.
get veterans preference. I got it off of my test scores.
Very well. And so there's a period of time where you're incarcerated.
I got incarcerated in 1986 for standing up against guns, drugs, and violence in my community in Zion and Waukegan, Illinois.
And that's supposedly a crime.
It was a crime because before, from 1977 to 1986, I sold guns, drugs, and I participated in the illicit activities. In 1986, I changed my mind and I wanted to stop doing it.
So when you changed your mind, it's analogous to the situation of Superfly, if you remember, when he decided
he didn't want to sell drugs.
He didn't want to sell drugs with Eddie.
Right.
And
that's what it was, because I was making money for somebody and nobody wanted me to stop making money.
And the quote is that he says, Eddie, we're just slaves. And Eddie says, I'm a slave, but I'm a rich-ass slave.
That is.
So someone sold you out? Perhaps?
No. I turned in guns and drugs. On the February the 8th, I turned in a rifle and some other guns to the police station, to the police. And I took my kids with me so my kids knew what I was doing. And then March the 3rd, I took drugs down there to the police station at the police department. And I turned them in. And when I turned them in, I called the police. No, I'm sorry, on March the 3rd, I called the police 911 because the police had kept bothering me, threatening me, pulling guns on me, coming up in my house without search warrants.
So they were upset that you ceased to want to kill your own kind.
Exactly.
So you needed to be taught a lesson.
I need to be put in my place.
So if other people start turning their guns and drugs in,
then it's going to be a problem.
Then people may sober up and realize there's a game being run on us.
Exactly.
Did you ever hear anything to that effect by anyone? Who do you think you are? Or smart.
Yeah, I heard that all the time. Oh man, when I was doing that and when I did this, they thought they was running stories on me in my newspaper in the hometown that said I lost my mind, I was crazy.
The police ran.
The police, the media runs in conjunction with the state's attorney and the justice, the judicial system, and they run in conjunction with the police.
So this is
a white-run Republican syndicate. The Armenian Mafia was running this. Okay, Sabanchin, his daddy, and the Armenians, they was running drugs, they was doing what they was doing, and I was making money for them.
And I want to stop for 1 second and reprise because you said Armenia, and Armenia is right next to Turkey.
I know where Armenia is.
I know.
And the Armenians is a strong hold in the 70s and the 60s. The Armenians went to Waukegan, Illinois. Robert Sabanchin's daddy, the new mayor, the mayor that's sitting there now, his daddy was running the Armenian Mafia. And people will tell you he was the godfather.
So there's a connection between this Midnight Express and narcotics that come from
Turkey. You got a lot of heroin coming out of there, a lot of opium coming out of there.
And it comes through
come right on through there.
The same Armenians who talk about their genocide at the hands of the Turks.
Genocide, doing the same thing
with the Turks to hurt African Americans and Latinos. Is that something that we could infer?
That's it. I'm breathing, sitting here. All you gotta do is check my DEA report, check my criminal history. All you gotta do is check it out. They got the records. They knew who I was selling to. They knew where I was getting it from.
I had an opportunity to go to Chicago in 1977, back when you were active.
That's when I was in the military.
Or just after. Maybe, no, I went in 85. I'm sorry, 85. No, there was two times I went, but there was a major bust of a Taiwanese heroin dealer, if you recall this, in Chicago. He was in the Taiwanese CIA, and they had to release him and give his drugs back and allow it to flow through the community. Did you ever witness instances where people basically were allowed to sell and do things and they weren't stopped? Did you ever see? Can you give me an example?
I was allowed to sell drugs. I shot a man in 1981. Shot him. All right. It was a territorial drug dispute. Front page paper, everything. I didn't pay for a lawyer. I didn't do a day in jail, and I got my guns back 2 days after I went to trial.
The police gave them back to you?
Gave my gun, the same gun that I shot that man with, I got back. The same gun that I shot that man with, I turned into the police department.
Just, they didn't polish or clean it?
The same gun.
Okay, all right. So, and you turned your life around. Now, was there anything spiritual, metaphysical? Did you look at your kids one day and say you wanted them to have it better? Did you see roots or hear a Malcolm X speech or something?
I knew about Malcolm X. I knew about Martin Luther King, and I knew what I was doing was feed my family. You give us this to work with, and that's what we work with. You can't hate us because we just perfected the game. The drug game wouldn't create it in my community. It was bought to my community. And that's how most of us eat. We're not going to get no job 9 to 5 paying us the kind of money we was making. We take care of beauty shops. We take care of babysitters. We take care of kids that ain't got shoes off that money. We have carnivals and fairs. We put books in people's... We do things for the community with that money. As dirty as it is, it does do a lot of good. No different than the Italians do with their dirty money.
Well, all the money, I would suspect, has some degree of taint in it, irrespective of who has it. The Federal Reserve, to me, why does a private cartel of banks get to issue the money that we pay a debt on when they print it? I think that so from the minute that it's printed, there is some sort of crime or fraud in the very money that may be connected to a derivative crime.
How much drug money you think go through the derivative market? How much property do you think drug dealers got? They own a lot of land.
I wouldn't even...
You know what I'm saying? So the mortgage companies that they go through, you know what I'm saying? You're going to tell me that a drug dealer that go through a mortgage company, and a mortgage company that get that money don't know that he a drug dealer? So the drug dealer go to jail, but the mortgage company get to keep the money and the property?
Yeah, you know, I'm not going to defend, and I'm not trying to...
Fannie Mac. You're not going to defend Fannie Mac because Fannie Mac got fat during the 70s and the 80s.
Miami real estate.
Yes, they did.
I understand.
And not just Miami. They got a lot of Denver, Colorado money.
A very gross example would be Southern Florida, the cocaine and marijuana.
No. That was just a smokescreen. The real money is in Colorado and Wyoming.
With the weed.
Not the weed, but the people that's prospered from the money. They got them 400-acre land. They ain't got nobody on it but one person. That's where the money at. That stuff in Miami and Florida and New York is just flamboyancy. You want to check the real money? The real money is out in the county. It's out of sight, out of mind.
No. Thank you for that. That's helpful. And as much as we don't think of Aspen, Colorado as a city that drugs made, we see that as a... I'm not saying that you don't see that, but when people hear about these prosperous areas like Jackson Hole, Wyoming, or some other place, we rarely think that that's drug proceeds. This is just hard-earned money from good old middle American know-how.
Good old boy got good old ideas. And they got good old money.
But they get it from...
You familiar with the book Diary of an Economic Hitman?
Perkins, yes.
Use that same philosophy on what's happening here in America. The concept of how he went down to South America and planted all this and did this and this with the drug war that they did here. And think how many different communities that didn't do the same thing with him here in our economic system. Same thing. Except I read Diary of an Economic Hitman. I didn't read it. I just took parts of it and I just put it to work. I'm a caterer. I work for 85% of the richest people in the state of Maryland. And I don't sign a confidentiality report. I know what you do. When I changed my life, I changed my lifestyle, but I didn't change my client list. I went after the same money I was getting when I was out in Illinois. Doctors, lawyers, judges, politicians. Because they got something to lose if they get caught up.
I want to ask you one of my favorite questions. When you were sowing your oats, if we could put it that way, or sowing your wheat, or whatever it is that you were sowing, what role did you see black community leaders take, whether they're church or civic or civil or community? Were they people that were trying to steer you away? Did they come and ask you for things behind everyone's back?
No.
What were they doing? What's your estimation of what your civic and spiritual leadership
during the
doing?
70s and early 80s, during the crack epidemic and the drug wars and all that, the civic duties, the churches stayed to the churches. They meted to their own congregations and their own flocks.
And that's what I'm asking. So, was there reaching out or
no? They didn't reach out.
Would that have made any difference whatsoever if people had tried to touch? Do you
It
imagine?
made a big difference because the church was conceived to be a fellowship and outreach for the community in which they were embedded in. That was the design of the church. Theology, everything else proves it. Christianity proves it. Jesus didn't have no mansion and no Rolls Royce.
How would you differentiate? Do you think that the super wealthy preachers, do they remind you in any way of drug dealers or hustlers?
They pimping Jesus. They pimping. I'm a pimp. I'm a reformed pimp. They didn't know about pimping the people. They taking that Bible. They taking parts of that Bible. They using the parts of that Bible that sound good. And today you might be having a bad day. So I'm gonna find me a verse that's gonna make you feel good. Make you feel good. You gonna feed me. You gonna pay me for making you feel good. They just pimping Jesus. Remember when Jesus had his last days on earth and he got rid of the money changers and strangers out of the synagogue because he said they wouldn't preaching the word according to God and the gospel? They doing the same thing now. How can you sit here and be a priest and a preacher and a reverend and a bishop and a this and a that and have all this jewelry, have all this materialistic things, and Jesus never lived like that? So how can you sit here and promote Christianity, not living a Christian life? But you're supposed to benefit from the word according to God? What about that homeless man you drove by?
Let me ask you a question. You made a comment that you took care of beauticians and you did fairs. Did you ever find it to be the case, even when you were doing illicit activity, that you may have helped people that were church goers with food or bills that they could not go to their own church to get support? Could you please give me detail on that?
I help anybody to come along my way. I would cook for the kids. I would pay kids not to get involved in selling drugs or getting whatever, you know what I'm saying? If they need a little extra money, I'll give them $20 here, $50 here. If they had a bill that their mama or something couldn't pay, I'd give their mama some money. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't no trading off to sleep with the mamas. It was, here go the money, go take what you got to do. You know what I'm saying?
Did they ever?
I was a Robin Hood in my community with my thing.
So as a Robin Hood, did you ever hear complaints that it was easier to get money or help from you, who supposedly...
No, because our community I'm from a small city, like 30-something thousand. We wouldn't know a great big city like Baltimore, New York, or Chicago, or nothing like that. This is just a small community. You know what I'm saying? Cousins related to cousins. Everybody know everybody. Everybody know everybody's business. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Family, generations, churches. You know?
Okay. I want us to come to Maryland because I think that it's fascinating. We have to have another discussion on that because I think that, and perhaps I want two people so we can tease that out some more, because that's really at the heart of our problem. You look at T.D. Jakes and you look at the good Bishop Eddie Long with his $25 million payout messing with folks' kids. You have to wonder, how can the leaders of a community be completely uninvolved with changing and standing up against evil in their communities and taking a stand against the man if need be, which is what Jesus did in the temple.
David fought Goliath because would nobody else fight Goliath. And when David beat Goliath, Saul got mad because the people started loving David.
But there's something else. If we go back to that same scripture, there was a promise of a reward if David whoever took Goliath would get all sorts of rewards. Go back and read that in 1 Samuel 17. Not that
I ain't that good on the Bible verses,
but
I'm just good with the
fair,
stories.
I'm fair enough to say, but that's a part of the story that needs to be told.
Right.
That David didn't just take a risk to kill Goliath. There was a reward, and that seems to be a problem we have in our community. Our fighters who stand up for us are expected to just do it for the hell of it. We'll pay a football player or a singer that doesn't give a damn about us once they've made it, and yet those who...
Here goes your analogy right here. Everybody want to be a Michael Jordan or a LeBron James or Barack Obama or somebody that's making money. We don't never hear nobody applying for Malcolm X's job or Martin Luther King's job.
Well, we know what the benefits are.
Being black in America, you wake up every day in any city. The chance of you coming up dead is how much? So what's the difference? If I'm doing Malcolm's job, Martin's job, or being a black man, the chance of me dying when I come home at night is what?
Let me ask you something before we get to Baltimore. You just raised this issue. Have you ever thought about the fear that many working class and middle class black folks have that's senseless, where they're afraid to risk the almost nothing that they have to make things better for their children, and they consider being afraid of everything to be smart and risk-taking?
Social economic deprivation is their fear, because they only got a little bit and they don't want to lose a little bit they got.
But so many lose what they have anyway, so how could one really say that? Is it
because they don't realize that they're losing it. They bought into the dream, and the dream don't include them. The dream is a nightmare in our community.
Even with Obama as president, the dream...
Just because Obama became president didn't mean black people was going to get nothing. You didn't hear Obama promise no black people nothing.
So
you didn't. Did you hear Obama promise us anything?
I voted for...
I'm just saying, did you hear Obama promise us anything? He said work hard. He said go do this, go do that. He didn't say when I get in office I'm going to give you nothing.
Well, slaves were told to work hard, but that didn't mean that they benefited from the fruits of their labor. But I had asked you, so with a black president and a beautiful black wife and 2 kids from one of your stomping grounds, Chicago,
from Illinois, do
you see a substantive, major difference or improvement in the lives of black folks?
Nope.
Is it a step backwards, or are we in the same place?
We took 1 step backwards, but we're getting ready to take 2 steps forward.
Explain.
We took the step backwards because Obama got elected. He made it hard on a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? Because white people was like, well, you got a black president now. You ain't got to talk about this. You ain't got to talk about that. But in the same breath, they were still implementing black codes and Jim Crow justice. You see it through the redistricting and the gerrymandering that they're doing now, trying to dilute the voting population. You know what I'm saying?
Along with our first black president, we have a first black attorney general. Do you have? Does this represent progress at all?
No, it don't.
Can you
y'all, this is something that you, as an intellectually intelligent individual, understands. You got black faces pulling out a white agenda, man. They call that black. It's just what it is. Obama don't run this country as president. General Mills, General Electric, that Fortune 500 is running this. That money that they putting in them people's pockets during the electoral is running this. Whether they be Republican or Democrat. When Bush was in there, they was giving Bush the money. Him and his daddy. So it ain't nothing changed. It's the money running this country. He just sitting in the driver's seat. So if the bus go over the hill, they're going to have somebody to blame.
I asked you about churches. What about some of our traditional groups like the NAACP, Urban League? Were any of these, in your assessment in Chicago?
NAACP, the Urban League, are what you call bougie type establishments. Bougie means it's a separation between regular black people and people that have, the haves and the have-nots. And they're taking care of the haves and they ain't taking care of the have-nots.
So the people that you knew in Zion, you didn't know many that were in the NAACP.
I knew people who was in NAACP.
But poor or
I knew everybody in NAACP, Urban League. We knew each other. It was a small community, like I said. But they're not going to attack issues that affect us as a people the way that they're supposed to. They're not going to track the inequalities in the judicial system the way they're supposed to, unless one of their members get involved.
Have you ever seen that where they helped a certain person but didn't help others?
They doing it right now in my hometown. A representative's family member was murdered, Billy Hanna, or Will Hanna, and it's related to Representative Mayfield. So now they having an all-out whatever about it. You know what I'm saying? But there's other incidents where blacks have been brutalized, beaten, killed, and they ain't did nothing about it. They got 175 inmates in the Lake County Jail that filed a petition to have the jail audited, and President Barack Obama said had the investigation in June of 2008. They ain't did it yet, and I'm the subject of the investigation. President Bush knew about it, Obama knew about it, Eric Holder know about it, Governor O'Malley know about it, all the Baltimore elected officials know about it.
You mentioned Baltimore. You, back on March 3rd, 1986, when you turned in, I guess, the illegal substances that you had, then were you arrested or railroaded? What happened to you after that when you decided to make a clean break? You did like Superfly. You were tired of the game.
At 9 o'clock, at 8 o'clock, March 3rd, 1986, I called the police 911. I told them I was coming. I had a 12-gauge shotgun, I had a .357 Magnum, I had a .25 automatic, and a .38. And I had it all on me, and I went downtown shooting it off. I marched from my house to the courthouse and took 45 minutes, and I didn't get excuse my French, I didn't get my ass whooped like Rodney King. I didn't get beat, I didn't get nothing. I turned in my guns, I laid down in the middle of the street, and they took me to jail. And I escaped from jail the same day, because they was going to hang me and kill me and say I lost my mind. So I stripped butt naked in the jail cell, had the ambulance come pick me up, and when they came and picked me up, they took me to Downey VA Medical Center, which I signed myself in because I'm a veteran. And you can check my medical records. I signed myself out 3 days later. And I went to court.
And?
I lost the case in court because the lawyer refused to call witnesses in my behalf and admit evidence. I won my case on appeal in 1988.
What your attorney, public defender?
Public defenders work for the state's attorney.
Black or white?
White or black, it don't matter. They get paid to keep you locked up.
But in this particular case...
He was white. His name was... I forgot his name.
Well, he's probably forgettable to you. And you won on appeal.
I won on appeal.
And then?
My case was overturned and remanded, and the state of Illinois refused to return my property. They took $15,000 cash. I had a gold Cadillac. I had a gold Lincoln. I had over $30,000 worth of jewelry. I had a house fully furnished, and they did not reimburse me for none of my losses. And that's when I went back home in 2007 asking for my property back because there's no statute of limitations on civil rights violations.
Okay, that property was taken in which...
1986.
In
Illinois.
In Zion.
In Zion and Waukegan, Illinois. Right.
Waukegan. Now, what happened? You came to Baltimore which year?
1990.
And you've been there since?
Been in the state of Maryland since 1990.
Okay, so in the last 22 years, if you could give me some idea of what...
I am a community activist. I promote good in all the communities that I work in. I work for the Heart Fest. I work for Johnny Unitas. I've worked for George Padarakis. I've worked for Michael Steele. I've worked for Governor O'Malley. I worked for Governor Mayor Smoke. I work for the Baltimore Ravens. I work for the Baltimore Orioles. I'm a caterer and a fundraiser. I've raised over $10 million in 13 years for different organizations in the state of Maryland.
I want to ask you a question. Your assessment of the first Lieutenant Governor of Maryland, Michael Steele. He's now head of the RNC.
He's not head of the RNC no more. He lost the RNC. All right, let me tell you about Michael Steele. Michael Steele and me came across each other in 2000. when Governor Ehrlich was running for office, I was approached by Reverend Heath, which was a friend of Mr. Steele, and I was approached to recruit blacks to become Republicans, to vote for the Republican Party and to be Republicans.
Did they offer to pay you?
No. They didn't offer to pay me. I did it because it needed to be done. We needed an alternate party. We needed another voice. And I was buying into what they were selling. You know what I'm saying? But I ain't as dumb as they thought I was. Because, see, I know politics. You ain't going to pay me, you owe me a favor. As long as you owe me, I ain't broke. Feel me?
So I can infer from that you have an issue with blacks all casting all their eggs in one Democratic basket.
Most major cities in this country with a high density of black people are run by Democrats.
True.
And it's run by Democrats for a reason, because the Democrats can control black people. Since Reconstruction, when we was talking about Reconstruction, they flipped the parties, Republicans, Democrats. So that's what they've been doing. And the Republicans are rewarded through the prison industry because those major cities fund the prison industry, correct?
And so in Baltimore, what you're saying, at least if I interpret this correctly, the Democrats are there to
black faces and white agenda,
to make certain that the schools don't work, the public services.
You ain't had a new school built in Baltimore in how long? But how many new schools you done put out in the county? You know what I'm saying? You done put up new county facilities for incarceration, but nothing for education. When you tore down the projects in Baltimore City, you moved all the black people into the county. When you moved them to the county, you moved them into the jail because the county police would lock them up just like that.
So the incarceration rates are basically constant between Howard County or Baltimore County and the city of Baltimore.
Wherever you move, the higher population that the blacks left out of Baltimore City and they went to Baltimore County, whether it be Howard County, whatever, you track the people, and most of them is people from Baltimore City that they're trying to lock up.
So The Wire, this program that comes on cable, which makes it seem as if it's just an issue in East Baltimore. The people in East Baltimore just can't get it together. And yet the American dream would say if you could get out to the county, if you could get out where there's more grass and more space.
You get out to the county, you get a job in the county, you working in the county, but all right, I'm working at a store. I'm working at Walmart. And I miss work because my baby's sick or I got a problem with my son in school or something like that. So now I'm a problem. So you're going to lean on me on my job and I'm already under stress. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So now you're going to make an offshoot comment about, because I live in Cherry Hill, it's you people. Y'all don't know this. You know what I'm saying? And these comments hurt. You know what I'm saying? Because these women and these men break themselves to get out to these Walmarts to work these jobs. What ain't nothing but plantation jobs. You know what I'm saying? So now I'm working this job, so I'm getting treated the same way, so I might as well go back to selling or hustling, because I ain't got to put up with this. Feel me?
Is that something that you hear people more or less say when they talk?
I see it.
You see, and you also, have you ever heard that?
Yeah, because people is tired of taking menial jobs. They say there's jobs here, there's jobs here. Well, where the jobs at? You gonna give me a job paying me $7 an hour? I can't pay my rent if my rent is $1,200. I can't pay my rent if my rent is $700. Because if I pay my rent, I can't eat. And if I get sick, I can't pay my health care. And I ain't got no health care. So where am I going? Where is all these jobs? Where all this money? You causing social and economic deprivation in our communities, and you telling us to buck up? And you making cuts in our youth centers, in our education, in our schools, in our health care, and our senior citizens? And you giving these corporations these tax breaks? You giving the banks this money to tax and fee us? So, hard to be us.
And so, reprising back to Mr. Steele, you meet him.
Go ahead.
You meet him in the context of getting blacks to try
a different party.
The big tent that everyone can fit into. The Republican Party says this, and you did that. And what was your experience?
I did some fundraisers for Mr. Steele with Bart Mitchell. Bart Mitchell is one of the money people in the organization. I gave you some videos. You'll see some of stuff. You can go through it. Long story short, I did the party for him. Kendall Erdick was there. Her son was there. He was about 3 or 4 years old. Never got paid for the party. Never got reimbursed. Never wrote it up. And they raised a lot of money there, like close to $15,000, $20,000 in private donations from different people. And that's the year that Ehrlich won the nomination, or just after he won it.
And you met Steele?
I met Steele a whole lot of times.
And your assessment of Steele? Good person? Average person? A person?
You seen Pinocchio and Geppetto?
Which stage of Pinocchio?
You seen Pinocchio and Geppetto? You seen Pinocchio?
Pinocchio when he's...
The strings on him?
Okay.
That's Mr. Steele.
I was thinking about the nose.
When Mr. Steele lied too much, they gonna cut his nose off.
Okay, so they'll run out of sauce first.
No, it ain't a lie if you believe it.
So you believe he's genuinely sincere in the things that he says?
No, he's genuinely a puppet. Like I said, that ain't gonna change. He a puppet. He a black face trying to push a white agenda, and he can throw a little couple of black slogans in there, and he'll be accepted.
I'm going to throw some more names out. Lieutenant Governor Brown, the new one. Any different? The same?
Brown, what has he done? Tell me what he's accomplished. What programs he put out there? What has he done? Some ribbon cuttings? Might as well get him a shoe shine box. Because if he ain't doing nothing in his position of power, what he's sitting there for? What is he doing to help our community? Actions speak louder than words, and if he ain't saying nothing, he ain't doing nothing, he don't mean no good for us. To me.
So, is it possible that Mr. Brown, the Lieutenant Governor, is a Democratic Party's answer to Ehrlich using a black Lieutenant Governor to make certain...
That's what he did. O'Malley had to put somebody black on the ticket because he couldn't make it with Towson. He couldn't make it with other people being Lieutenant Governor. He had to get black in there to ensure that black people would get a vote for him. So they used Brown. Remember when Obama ran for... I'm from Chicago. Obama won his seat in his office because they didn't have nobody to run against him. The Republicans brought in Alan Keyes to run against him.
Right, for the Senate.
Okay?
Yes.
To show you how desperate they was, all right?
Yes.
Politics.
And you worked with Keyes as well. He ran...
Keyes, I ain't never meet Keyes. I don't know Keyes, but the things I know about Keyes, he ain't with nothing but a real puppet. He's the put me in coach guy. Wherever they needed a nigga, and I mean that literally, wherever they needed a nigga to run, they ran Alan Keyes, didn't he? How many places did Alan Keyes run in the last 10 years? Ooh, lot. Yeah. You only live in one city. How can you live and run in 4 states? Like, you know what I'm saying? Keep it real. I mean, you want to ask me, I'm going to give you some... This is Ghettoology 101.
Well, Ghettoology is fine. I'm going to throw out some names. I'm just going to put out feelers.
All right.
I'm going to put out feelers for Reverend Jamal Bryant. He's one of these preaching wonder kinds that I'm curious about the good...
Reverend Jamal Bryant. Since my little situation, I have tried to contact him on numerous occasions. There's got a program coming out of his church called Ceasefire. Ceasefire is also ran out of Chicago. It's against the guns, gangs, and the violence. And it's a program that we've been trying to implement in the city to help stop the violence in the city. Now, Reverend Jamal Bryant is so on that thing, then he should have been talking to me 4 years ago. He's been avoiding me, don't even acknowledge me, you know what I'm saying?
Do you know anyone in your circle of activists that he does do anything for?
He does work with different people. Catalina Bird, he works with...
Are they effective? Are they making change, real change in...
No, he just making a lot of money.
So
he making a lot of money. I don't know where the money going, I don't know where it's going, but it ain't going to where it's going. Jamal Bryant has a church, a fellowship over here on Ricestown Road, right off Ricestown Road. That money from that church should be going back into that community there.
Does it go?
I don't know, because I hear him talking about putting money over in Africa, and you know how that African money was when Jimmy Swaggart was getting that African money. Where did that money go?
I need to ask you about some others. Reverend Frank Reed.
Frank Reed, I can't say nothing bad about him.
Can you say something good?
Mama said if you ain't got nothing good to say, don't say nothing at all. Frank Reed is part of a contingency, is a good word to use, of people that can get things done, but can get more done because of the power he in. He can do more with what he got than what he does.
But okay, so
I feel he can.
In your opinion, several of these people are doing just enough.
They're doing just enough to get by, to keep to criticize
so
them.
Someone like you can't say that they never did anything.
Exactly.
I'll do something once a year to silence, because if I do absolutely nothing,
then you part of the problem.
Then the more outspoken African American people could become morally empowered to call them out. So I call it minimalism. I do just enough
to get by.
Because
you get a C when you could have got an A.
And I call the two ideas, I'm a maximalist. If I can have a very good interview with you, pull as much out as I can, I'm going to get the maximum versus the minimum, which is 5-10 minutes, and then have you go. I think that this is a crisis with African Americans and Africans everywhere.
Our community is in crisis all over America. Every ghetto is in a crisis.
Because of the bare minimum. If take the president, he did have the King family fly up
there
on
you
Air
go.
Force One for the dedication of the
there
King
you
Memorial.
go. Doing just enough to,
but
we call it photo ops.
Yeah, which is enough to look good. But in Chicago and 4 other, in fact, Washington, D.C. is the only major city in the country that blacks live in where 2/3 of the black men are employed.
And how many is in prison?
Well, the numbers are high. The numbers are high. I'm not saying that the president is supposed to be a miracle worker, but I do believe when you have 50% unemployment almost as a norm across the country, it is a crisis. And I'll go one step further. When you get 17 million votes,
in the defense of the president on that one, on the jobs and stuff like that, he been in office for 2 years, correct?
3
years, correct? The whole time he been in office, he been fighting the Congress. He can't get no legislation passed. If this was Bush or whatever, they was passing shit like him, like they was giving him free government cheese. You feel me? So that dude's had something to do with his stalemate and the position he in. And I will say that on his behalf. You know what I'm saying? If you had a Congress of let's work together instead of a Congress of no, and a Senate to say no, then how you going to get anything done?
When he had a majority in the House and Senate prior to the midterm.
And he lost them in the midterm.
He lost the midterm.
But he needed them now. He got them through. He got them in the door, but he needed them through the battle. And he lost them in the battle because of the Tea Party and the rhetoric and the racism that they was throwing around, and their dislike for the party establishment and the good old boys that they got. You got the Republicans fighting within the Republicans, and the Democrats don't know what to do. They got their thumb in their ass.
Is it just their thumb?
Well, they could show the hell of hand, but I was just using their thumb.
Okay. Now, I asked about Reverend Reed. Kwesi and Fume.
Kwasi and Fume is part of the, I guess you want to say, the O'Malley establishment. You know what I'm saying?
Have you ever heard there's a nickname that, I live in Washington, so I don't know it like you would, but it was called You Fool Me instead of Mfume. Have you ever heard that reference made?
I heard a lot of little references and stuff like that, but I just go on a person's, like they say, action speaks louder than words.
So are there actions that...
Kwasi and Fume was NAACP. Kwasi and Fume got a lot of pull in the community, and they don't do what they need to do in the community.
So he's no different from...
He's no different than...
Elijah Cummings.
Kwasi and Fume, the whole thing. Here you go. I've been following Governor O'Malley since he was a city councilman. You go back 13, 14, 15 years ago, you go follow Kwasi and Fume, you see how they started setting up their little power structures and their little power structure fluctuations, all right? It's set up the same way that they did in Chicago with Mayor Daley. When the Jacksons had this side of town and the Jacksons had this and the this and the that, all right? And the powers that we got in America now, when the blacks got these elite powers like Abernathy and all them, they got it after Martin Luther King died. None of them people picked up the torch and did what Martin Luther King was doing when Martin Luther King died. Each one of them got a faction. You got Atlanta, you got Indiana, you got California, you got New York.
Kirk Smoke any different from...
Kirk Smoke tried to make change, and Kirk Smoke could be changed, but Kirk Smoke realized that he was just beating his head against the wall. Kirk Smoke wanted to legalize drugs, decriminalize drugs, because he seen what it was doing, and there was more money in it. But the prison industry and the lawyers getting paid off it in the judicial system, and he knew he couldn't beat that money, so Kirk Smoke just...
So they made him a bad guy for trying to take the money out of the game.
Yeah. If you sit here... This is the thing about the drug game. If I can get an ounce of weed for $30 from the government because it's prescription medication, and that same ounce of weed is going to cost me $300 in the streets. Come on, dude. Let's do the math here. Legalizing this,
you'd go to Walmart
in a heartbeat. Get about can fail. You know what I'm saying? Marijuana does not cause cancer. Does not cause you shortness of breath. It doesn't hurt you. You don't hear nobody running around doing woody-wooty-woot like you do with alcohol. The same thing with prohibition in the 30s, in the 20s. They legalized alcohol because it was killing Italians and Irish people with the war on alcohol. And we're doing the same thing with the war on drugs now, except you killing blacks and Hispanics and poor whites and don't nobody care. That's genocide.
Should we legalize drugs?
Legalize it.
Decriminalize it.
Legalize it, decriminalize it, and send pedophiles to jail. Send child molesters to jail.
We won't have any Congress or government. I want to get to the heart of this. You've got several actions, suits. You have a one-man crusade for justice against the system of mass incarceration.
Against the prison industry.
Could you talk about that? And I'm not going to interrupt you. I just want you to take about 5 minutes and just run it down. Talk a little bit about the toilets and your protest.
In December of 2006, my son was murdered. Before my son was murdered, I was making this movie with Rob Fix. And the movie was called Letters to Zion. In the course of the movie, my son was murdered in Chicago for a home invasion. He went to rob somebody. Alright, that's what he did. My son was a criminal. He did what he did. But it didn't happen the way they said it happened. My son he robbed these same people 6 months earlier, and these people never turned him in. This was revenge and retribution for the earlier robbery. And that's what I was telling in my story. I use the toilets because it's Pavlov's theory of call and response. When you go to jail, you got a toilet and a bed. And since I was fighting the prison industry, I used that as my artistic expression. I was potty trained in the judicial system. I was showing you that if I can go to jail, you can go to jail too. So 2006, we started filming the movie right after my son was murdered. And we called it Letters to Zion. In the time that I spent in Illinois, I put out letters. And in the course of that time, I notified all public officials that I was making this movie. Editors to the Baltimore Sun, Waukegan News Sun, Time Magazine, Life Magazine, all this. Everybody was notified. Gave them movie releases, let everybody sign them, send the certified mails, and I started passing out CDs. So for the next 3-4 years, all right, 2007, January 2007, I went to court in Judge Rossetti's courtroom to get my property from a 1986 case. When I went to get my property, I was berated by the judge. There was a write-up in the paper. And that night, I was arrested for a bomb threat because during the course of the day, somebody called in a bomb threat while I was in court. And they charged me with the bomb threat. They held me for like 8 hours and let me go. But that was a way to teach me a lesson how they could use their power, all right? Now, December 24th, 2007, I was arrested for a bomb threat again because I came back home to get my property, get the things that I was doing, plus I was shooting my movie. In the course of that time, I handed a white lady an envelope, and on the envelope it said, bomb threat, 1/31/07. That was the day that the newspaper arrested me for the bomb threat. And I wanted a public apology in the newspaper the same way you disrespected me. So on that day, they locked me up. I stayed locked up from December the 24th till June the 8th of 2008. I lost about 15, 20 pounds. I was borderline diabetic. I pleaded guilty, and I took back my guilty plea, and I filed to have my case heard here in the state of Maryland, like Dred Scott, because I feared for my life in the state of Illinois. And I put all the paperwork and did everything like I was supposed to. Governor O'Malley knew, all the officials knew. I did everything I was supposed to do. Everything was legal. I had everything on storyboards, just like these storyboards. I had everything on video, just like I showed you the videos, just like you've been seeing it. That YouTube page, I call it my Ghetto Da Vinci Code, because everything I was doing is on there. The calls to the FBI. So we moved back from 2008, so I filed my papers, and in 2008, the state of Maryland accepted forged checks while I was locked up for my property on Falls Road. That's where it comes into Dred Scott, because that's my property. Shorty is an entity. It's a entity. It's a trade. It's trademark. And it's me. So I lost that to the state. The state refused to pay me my money. Bank of America let $10,000 get depleted out of my account. Nobody wanted to pay me back my money. And they arrested me for a bomb threat again 2/7/2011 because I put a toilet in front of the Baltimore County Towson Courthouse, exposing the media's role that they play in misinformation to the people. The toilet had all different kind of media personalities' names on it: Richard Sher, NPR, Lamont Hill. You know, that was telling black story, was carrying out white agendas through black faces. WJZ 13 was on it, and I had it all right here. That was it. It showed the mortgage company fraud, it showed banking fraud, it showed everybody involved right here. DVD, cell phone, and it was plain and simple. But to teach me a lesson, they locked me up and they threatened to give me 20 years for putting that toilet up there. And I went to trial. I won the case in September. And here it is, damn near February, Black History Month, a year later, and they still haven't returned my video camera, my editing equipment, none of my property, my truck, and over 8 months worth of film. So freedom of speech and all these rights and this democracy that you claim belong to us as black people in America is bullshit. This ain't no different than Dred Scott in 1857. Blacks have no rights in America, which white judicial system respects. We went to bat for Daniel Gross in Cuba. We went to bat for Ling and Lee in North Korea. We went to bat for all these other people, but we're not going to bat for no black people in jail. We letting us ride here and rot here like it's legalized slavery. We traded the plantation for the penitentiary, cotton for cocaine, and black people still a cash crop.
Is there any organized resistance that you can see in the state of Maryland? Prince George's County, Howard County, Baltimore County, the city of Baltimore?
We got the solidarity movements in Baltimore. We got the Baltimore Black Think Tank organized by David Wiggins and others. And we got these little small pockets, but we need to start getting them together and making moves. We're trying to get a grand jury movement. Because if you're going to make any difference, you got to make it through the court. Thurgood Marshall showed you that.
Is there a website or place that people, if they saw this and wanted to hook up with you or other persons, how would they contact you?
You go to www.youtube.com/user Shorty's Voice. One word, Shorty's Voice. Those are my videos. Other than that, you contact me on Facebook. And I do everything on Facebook because I keep everything in the public eye. I'm going to sell this movie to Facebook and make money off of it. Because Facebook is getting ready to go public with their stocks. Nobody never distributed a new movie on Facebook. They always got to go through United Artists and stuff like that. But if we can distribute the movie on Facebook and charge you $5 a pop, we just change different products. I used to sell nickel bags, now I'm going to sell $5 worth of knowledge.
In our last few minutes, you plan to sue the mayor of Baltimore?
I'm gonna sue every public official that had knowledge of my movie. I'm gonna sue every public official and TV personality, reporter, TV station, broadcasting unit that had public knowledge and knowledge of this movie and my toilets prior to this illegal incarceration. If you had knowledge and you knew this was what I was doing and you blatantly told a lie and reported that lie, then you are liable to defamation of my character. That means that ABC, WJZ, WBAL, Fox 45, Baltimore Sun, I can sue you.
You've got I have like a minute left. If you could leave a message of inspiration or a challenge or a call to arms, what would you say to people that see this?
Stop accepting what they put on your plate. Hold them accountable. The government works for you. You don't work for the government. They got the equation twisted. They got the numerator and the denominator twisted. They work for us. They don't work for corporations. And you need to start holding them accountable for that. If they don't do their job, make them lose their job. If they in bed and doing corruption, send them to jail. Don't slap them on the wrist. Don't give them no 401k. Take their kids out of college. Put them on the unemployment line. Foreclose on their houses. Treat them the same way they've been treating us. Fair exchange. Ain't no robbery. Ain't no stick up without a gun.
My brother, I thank you for your presentation on behalf of Dignity Reports and in respect to the greatest living, outspoken champion for human rights, peace, and justice, the Honorable Cynthia McKinney. We thank you, and we hope that you shed the word. Tell everybody that we don't want the jails. We want people to take the streets and take the cities and take their country back, no matter what they look like.
You got to march, but you're going to make change. Start taking them to court. Start holding grand jury movements. The 1964 Civil Rights Public Accommodation Act entitles us access to the courts, the jails, and our representatives. Use the law to get our rights.
You have the power. Take the power. People have died, suffered, been tortured for you to be able to be free. Never give up. Never stop fighting.
Never surrender.
God bless you, and have a blessed year in struggle. This is Dr. Randy Short. Ladies and gentlemen, lovers of peace, human rights, and those who are against the criminal and justice system, mass incarceration, and all those forces that would deny us the right to be free people on this earth that God made for all of us. My name is Dr. Randy Short, and I have the honor of having activist-in-chief, Brother Dwayne Davis from the city of Baltimore. Don't even think about the wire. And he's here to give us a follow-up segment talking about a situation that should concern you, about a civil liberties group that's supposed to look out for the rights of people. Some of us know it as the American Civil Liberties Union, but I would suspect our guest has perhaps his own word for the A and the CLU. Without further ado, good evening and welcome, Mr. Davis.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. This letter here that I have in my possession was sent to the Civil Liberties Union while I was locked up last year. It's timed and dated and has a stamp right here from a notary public to make it all legal. The American Civil Liberties Union is supposed to protect the rights of individuals, the class of people, and you got over 1,400 inmates in the Department of Corrections in Baltimore County that their rights are not protected. The public defenders don't defend them with the due diligence of the law. Now, my lawyer had this in his possession and refused to give it to the judge and refused to give it to the ACLU. I'm going to open it right now and I'm going to read it to you. This was the letter that I sent. And on the front of the letter, right here, is a legal notice talking about the terrorist activity and our false imprisonment in the state of Illinois that I was talking about earlier. And this was in my lawyer's possession, and I should have been released from Baltimore. All right, and got Governor O'Malley's name on it. It's stamped and dated. It's perfectly legal. This is a letter from President Barack Obama asking for a full investigation about the incarceration in the state of Illinois, because I did a undercover independent investigation about the penal system in the state of Illinois and Maryland. It was a Whistleblowers Act, and President Obama asked for the investigation. It says it right here. I'm the subject of the investigation. Right here is a letter from me, from Barbara Mikulski, Congressman Cummings, Patrick Fitzgerald, Lisa Madigan, telling them I'm making a documentary about the judicial system. It's timed and dated February 2009, long before I got locked up. Matter of fact, 2 years and 2 days before I got locked up. It's right here. Since they took my paper and pen, I had to read and write on the back of the envelopes for what I'm doing. I gotta read this to y'all. And this was to the ACLU. It says, "Dear Deborah A. Leon, or Gion, I am writing you this letter because I saw an article in the Baltimore Sun and said you stood up for the officer. Well, I've been making a documentary and writing a book about racism in the judicial system. I have been denied due process, equal protection under the law, by the law. There are over 135 inmates that have asked me to contact the ACLU on their behalf in the state of Illinois and Maryland. My lawyer, Mr. Saunders, is representing me without the due diligence of the law. He is a patient man. He is an honest man. I don't trust him. But there are inmates in this facility that are being denied due process, equal protection, and countless other civil, human, and constitutional rights violations. And you'll review the letter. If you review the letter and get the material I sent Mr. Saunders from the NAACP, I hope it will move you to get involved in the inmates on behalf of the Baltimore County Detention Correctional Centers. Senator/President Barack Obama asked for a full investigation in 2008. And the rest of the material is self-explanatory. I was and am making a documentary, and I named the names of officials involved in the play-to-play politics that directly affect the underclass in Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Maryland, as well as Illinois. No one has ever attempted to expose the judicial system the way I have done. Everything is on Facebook, YouTube, and MySpace. My lawyer is capable of defending me, but he and you together can help so many others. I made the ultimate sacrifice of self. I don't want this done in vain. That's why I am respectfully asking the ACLU to get involved. I will be awaiting a response from your office one way or another, at least to ensure delivery of this letter. Freedom is not free. But this is not just about me. It's about the various minorities that suffer behind a racially biased judicial system. Knowingly and willingly filing false charges against innocent people is against the Constitution and violates the civil liberties of those individuals. I hope this letter doesn't fall on deaf ears. I just want to be man enough to stand up against it." These are the letters, and this is the article in the Baltimore Sun talking about Facebook page and an officer that they denied a job to because of his Facebook page. I use Facebook page because it's an international, so it's a social medium to expose the corruption that's going on. Plus, it's our way of using the media because the mainstream media is not going to get our stories out. That's basically what the ACLU knew. That's what the lawyers knew, and that's why we need to hold our judicial system accountable. This is legal mail. This is official. It's the truth about our judicial system.
So where does your case stand?
I won my case. Now I'm in the process of filing a civil suit. But to file a civil suit, I got to get all the information in the property back, and that's what I'm doing now. And in the meantime, in the between time, I got a new job. I'm a professional pisser-offer. Everybody can't do this. I do it for a living, and I'm gonna hold those officials accountable, just like P.D. Green. And I'm the new one.
Keep it real. Keep the faith. This is Dr. Randy Short for Dignity Productions in conjunction with Education for Peace Studios with our producer-in-chief, Ms. Jocelyn Lawrence. We thank you. Share this. Stand up. Speak up. Fight for your rights. God bless you.